All right. Thank you so much. Welcome to Real Impact TV. Today, we're going to be talking about various things, but we're going to be talking about legal liability. So this is a great subject that everybody in real estate investing needs to know about. But first of all, we are Real Impact. We are your local real estate investing source for information with all the local issues and all the local contacts and everybody out there that you're dealing with. We're all local. So we have multiple locations, 12, 13 locations now throughout Texas and now in Oklahoma. So we're excited you're here. We have your local real estate investor that we give great information in a once a month meeting, and then we have these calls every Sunday night, unless it's a holiday. But we're excited you're here tonight. My name is Roger Pascal. Dennis Henson and I started Real Impact training about 3 years ago, and we have been very blessed to see lots of great progress and changing lives of many people as they come and join our organization and do various things. So there we go. So we have these calls every Sunday night. We're here to give you information, free information. You're not having to wait till next week sometime to try to find some information. We have a chat box down here you can add questions to, and we'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have regarding our subject tonight. If it's way off subject, we may not get to it. But yeah, definitely, if you have any questions regarding legal liabilities, we have that tonight. So what we're going to do is we're going to start this out with the Impact Master Trainers. They are the local owners of the real estate RIAs, real estate investment groups. And so right now, let's start putting people on. Doug and Renee, CJ, put everybody on so we can announce them as they come on. Hey, Karen Maxwell.
Here.
Karen Maxwell is fixing to open up a new location in Plano, Texas, in that area up there. She's also our corporate sales rep for helping people start up new groups and new organizations. We have Doug and Renee Toon out of Longview, Texas. They do a phenomenal job out there in Longview, Texas. And we have Eric Short, which is one of our newest IMTs, but he's in the Grand Prairie area as that. So welcome on board, everybody. Thank you for being on here tonight. So once again, we're going to be talking about legal liabilities. We are not lawyers. We're not CPAs. We're not here to give you legal advice. We're going to talk about things that happen in our business and why you need to be working with professionals out there. So with that, Karen, you have the floor.
All right. Well, thank y'all so much for joining us. I want to remind you that if this is your first time joining us, please make sure you subscribe to Real Network TV here on YouTube and hit the bell. That way you'll get reminded every Sunday night when we go live. We don't want you to miss out. Okay. My first question is for you, Roger. They want to know, what are the additional responsibilities or differences that a realtor has to keep in mind versus a real estate investor, which of course real estate investors aren't licensed. It's our career choice. It's, how we make our money. But when you're a realtor, there are certain things that you have to kind of do differently. Can you fill us in on that?
Absolutely. So as a investor, the easiest way to put this, as an investor, you're representing yourself. You're representing your sale or your purchase. As a realtor will represent another party. So there's some additional legal liabilities for a realtor. There's some ethics regulations that realtors have to follow, and they're essentially held to the standard of working with another party instead of working on the deal yourself as an investor. So that's the major difference. Is with you working yourself, you do have some responsibilities in the eyes of the courts, in the eyes of the law. But once again, you're not representing somebody else. You're just representing yourself. So I hope that made that clear to Karen.
Yeah, I believe so. Now, I'm just always glad that I don't have to lead with, oh, I'm a real estate investor and I'm not a licensed realtor. I'm buying this for myself. I mean, I'm just glad that I'm able to just buy a house.
Right. And bottom line, if I am a realtor, and bottom line, if I were to go out there and misrepresent myself, or as a realtor, I have to disclose to the party that I'm working with the values of the property, because I have access to that. And through the MLS, Texas is a non-disclosure state, but I do have access to that, to the MLS, and I have access to know what property values are, and I'm held to that standard, which is what it should be. And then as an investor, you really don't have, as an investor, access to sold properties in Texas, because Texas, once again, is a non-disclosure state, and where I would have to go in and literally make sure that disclose to the seller what the property values are and what the market is, and everything on that basis. As an investor, you don't have access to that, so you can't disclose much of that information to a end seller or a buyer or something on that basis. It's not that you want to mislead them. It's just, as a realtor, we have access. As an investor, you're not a realtor, you don't have access to that.
Right.
I'd sure like to add something to that.
Go ahead, Eric.
Roger mentioned that the realtor represents a seller or a company, and the investor only represents themselves. And I would say to that, it's even a higher standard, because you, as an investor, are putting your name and your reputation out there on the line. I've had a couple of situations where seller's disclosure didn't reveal something to the extent that was actually there, and to go in and remediate what a fix and flip person did, leaves a real bad taste in my mouth about that person. So I would say, in my own humble opinion, a real estate investor needs to have a higher standard than that of a realtor. That's my own humble opinion.
Absolutely. I think it's all about each of our own integrity. And that's the one thing with Real Impact, is that we are all about high integrity. We want to deliver a product that we can stand behind. And actually, I guess I can just skip to question 5. So I'm going to go a little out of order. Y'all just have to help work with me here. Eric, what kind of issues need to be disclosed when you're selling a property?
You mean like perhaps I have a story about something that may have happened to me?
Perhaps. I know I have a ton of stories about hidden things.
So I purchased a house for myself, and it was bought from the owner before me by someone who went through and painted over literally a lot of problems. And one of the problems he painted over was the existence of mold. It was a big deal back a couple of decades ago, and to the point that insurance companies don't cover that to the extent that they used to. So I've got to go back through my own seller's disclosure when I bought the house to see if there's some wording there that I can use to contact the flipper to see if I can't get some restitution for. So my only thing is, if you see a problem with a property that you're going to flip, please fix it to the highest standard. Don't just cover it up. Just paint does not kill mold, and even the mold killing paint doesn't do a great job of it. It really has to be remediated. And I have found out that even though I personally am not really susceptible to mold, I found out that it's more like a bee sting. Some people are deadly allergic to bee stings, need an EpiPen with them all the time, and other people just brush the bee away after it stung them. You never know. You never know until you find out. It sounds a little odd, but until it actually happens to you, the mold issue can cause problems.
Yeah, one thing that you said fix the problem, don't just cover it up.
Don't cover it up.
we we have tried a French drain to fix a flooding problem on a property, a lower lying level of a house. And I don't even know how many times that house flooded. And all I kept thinking was, we should have done it. Something told us that it wasn't going to be enough, but the contractor insisted that it would be fine, and it was not. And I don't even know how many times that lower level flooded to the point where we had to go in, cut out the sheetrock, everything. We did all that before the mold got there because it was so much damage. That, I mean, and it's just a mess. But if we had just, well, obviously it was one of our rental properties, so it's something it was an ongoing thing. And so when we were well, not me, but when they were under the house on Christmas Eve, when it was 28 degrees in freezing cold water, dealing with the issue, I mean, I felt terrible. But we did end up hiring a professional to come in and put another professional. We didn't skimp the first time, but they didn't think that it needed a pump. The lateral lines would be fine. Well, that just filled up. So we ended up having to get a pump and pump it into the sewer system so that because it would just come down the hill right into this room. And then always make sure your tenant knows which one's the GFCI, light on or light off, which one's tripped. Oh gosh. I mean, but anyway, so it was a great use of the space, but it was not conducive. After the fact, it was not a 3-bedroom because that downstairs always flooded.
Yeah.
Wow.
Don't just cover it up and follow you and ruin your reputation.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So does anybody else have any stories about things that maybe were missed in there? Because like when we're buying properties, we're buying as is typically. As real estate investors, we're buying as is. Yes, you always want to ask, do they have seller's disclosures, especially if you're buying on the MLS. If it's listed on the MLS, there should be seller's disclosures. I know for me personally, the ones that I have listed on the MLS are ones that we've either rehabbed, and so I'm able to give the best of my knowledge. But Roger brought up an interesting point about how long do the seller's disclosures last? If I'm selling a property in 2022, how long is my report, what I said was wrong with the house, done to the house, how long is that going to stick with the house?
Well, if the any buyer on that property, literally to the end of time, finds anything that you may have covered up and you did not disclose that you've covered up, a good example would be mold, as Eric was talking about. And it's obvious that you've covered that up. A good example, I've got 2 examples of plumbers, for instance. 2 properties that we were involved in. One had plumbing issues, and it wasn't disclosed. And the buyer that owned the property, about 3 or 4 months after they purchased the property, had a plumber out there. And the plumber said, "Oh, I've been out here probably a dozen times," and kept telling the guy how to fix this, and he never would pay to get it fixed. Yeah. So that's a big issue. But to answer your question, that seller's disclosure is the only document that outlives the closing. So it is. You have, I believe, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but I believe it's 10 years after discovery. If you discover it 40 years down the road, you have 10 years after that to take action.
Wow.
So the disclosure is your best friend if you do it right, because you've decided. And if you're just flipping the property, and essentially what the disclosure, it's real simple, is asking, do you have electricity? Do you have water? Are there any pre-existing conditions that you have not taken care of? And here's a list of pre-existing conditions that if you took care of them, you need to disclose that you took care of these. And it's as simple as that. And you're passing the buck on to the contractor. You're passing the buck on to the person who repaired that. If you had the right person out there repairing, like Karen, you were saying about the sump pump under the house, is you want to make sure that individual is capable of doing their job. If they're not, then that's where they're in trouble. So you're essentially you're passing the buck. Are you going to be involved in it in a lawsuit? Probably. but you have somebody to push it off onto. The other disclosure was, or the other plumbing issue that I was going to mention is a neighbor came over and told the people, when you bought this, did he fix that plumbing issue, or is it still an issue? What plumbing issue? It never was disclosed. The seller never said anything about it. So one, it was a neighbor that came over. Another one was they just happened to call the same plumber that came to the house multiple times. But once again, that disclosure is going to last forever because it is the only document that outlives the closing.
Okay, interesting question that just popped up. Roger, can there be multiple disclosures? And I think I understand where this question is going. Is there one per sale of the same house? So if I bought it in 2010 and you buy it in 2022, I fill out one, or the seller filled out one when I bought it, and then when I sell it to you, I fill out a new one. Do you go to your realtor and say, I need the seller's disclosures? Are they going to pull up all the past ones also?
No, they don't. They don't do that. So you're just going to provide the one. You're just liable for the time frame that you owned that property. Okay. So if something was done before you and not disclosed, and it's not on your disclosure, you're passing the buck on to the person you bought that house from. Okay. So you're only going to provide one disclosure as the main disclosure for the property, and then you have other disclosures out there. You have septic disclosures. You have kind of an HOA document that's sort of a disclosure. You're disclosing that it has an HOA, and here's what the fees are on that basis. So, but no, you're not going to provide multiple disclosures for multiple of the same kind of disclosures from the past owners. Nobody's expecting you to do that. Okay.
Hope that answered that question. I think we definitely got out of order here, but I want to get to. I'm going to go to Doug on this one. Doug, this is your question, and I'll have to go back up to the top in a second. Doug, what kind of issues can come up with hiring non-licensed professionals? And then who do I contact when I'm doing a flip? Remember, this is a flip. We don't live in the house. We're not the homeowner, but we are the homeowner in the sense that we're doing the flip. So now we are the responsible party. Who do I contact for permits and when?
Well, I've done 100 plus rehabs, and I've done some of the work myself. But when it comes to really important things like electrical and plumbing, HVAC, I don't like to do my own roofing anymore. But in order to do those things correctly and to have a good product at the end and be even warranted a lot of times, you want to use a licensed professional. You don't want to have your brother-in-law come over, like Roger said before, and just kind of pigtail things around and then have a spark happen, and then it catches something on fire inside the wall. And nobody saw that because the sheetrock was all taped in bed and textured and painted, and it burns the house down. Whether it hurts somebody or not, it's still it's not necessarily. I don't know that they can, really legally come back on you, but it's a liability, and there's laws against stuff like that. You have to. I'm trying to think of the word. Negligence. There's laws against negligence, and but at the same time, I don't want to be laying in bed at night and wake up and think, oh, somebody's dying in a house that I just fixed up. I don't want that thought going through my head. So, getting the proper permits, going to the city and making sure that, you don't pull the permits, the contractors pull the permits, especially electricians and plumbers. You would pull the permit on the actual rehab. And there's certain things that don't have to be done by a licensed professional. If you're just moving something, just far enough. You don't have to, something that you don't have to disconnect and reconnect. You can just move the box over and nail it up, put sheetrock up. You can do that. You can move it a foot, but again,
I think that comes back to, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think your image of wondering, is anyone dying in the house I rebuilt? It goes back to I hold myself to a higher standard as an investor.
Right. Well, even as a construction person in general, I don't want something happening that I have to be called back on anyway. But something tragic would be awful to have to deal with.
One of the mottos that we try to live by is your word is your worth, and your worth is your word. And you put it out there, and you want to be a person of integrity when you're working in the real estate investing business. That's who we want to be.
Yeah. So
right.
Get the proper licensed professionals and get them to pull permits, and then the city will send an inspector out and make sure it's done properly. You don't even have to count on the electrician to do that, because the wall has to be opened up. They have to see it. They have to okay it, and then it can be
closed down,
finished out.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And if you don't, they'll make you tear it out so they can see.
Oh, they will. Oh, yeah.
They will.
They will make you tear it out.
How do you know that, Karen?
Ask me how I know. Like I said, I've been doing this for 8 years. We did not know that you had to change a faucet and tile out the shower, that you had to have a permit. And they came in to look at something else that we were permitting and saw that and was like, hey, well, that's new. You didn't get a permit for that.
Yeah.
That even the faucet on your vanity, you gotta have a permit for that. So I learned that was on our one of our first flips. And I remember thinking, we're going to get a permit for everything. I mean, just come on in. This is what we're planning on doing. Which permits do we need? I mean, obviously,
cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
They don't cost a lot of money.
They don't. And they're there for your protection and for the protection of the people that you are fixing this house up for. Because trust me, if some unlicensed roofer is on your roof, now this has not happened to me, this was another story from another investor, is on your roof and they fall off, who's going to get sued? Mm-hmm. You are, because it's your house and you have some unlicensed Yahoo up on your roof replacing your roof. Now, I did have one fall through the ceiling one time. That was him, and he didn't work for us anymore. Was caught drinking on the job. So there you go. You can have someone fall through your ceiling. Luckily, he wasn't hurt, but you have a clause. Do what?
You have a clause in your contract that says right before you hit the floor, you're fired.
Right, exactly. So that goes to my main point when we were preparing for tonight's call. My main thought I wanted to make sure I get out is always get your agreements in writing. And that everything that we have said tonight has talked about things in writing, whether it be the agreement with the seller, your agreement with your buyer, your agreement with your electrician. If your electrician is going to do so, or let's say your plumber is going to do some work on your property and you're fixing to sell it, and he doesn't go get a permit and he doesn't know what he's doing and he messes the whole thing up. And then you have to go back. Now you have to repay somebody else to come back and fix his mess up. Mm-hmm. It's going to take you more time. I don't even want to talk about the aggravation, and it's definitely going to cost you more money. Yep. So get the agreement in writing that they're going to pull permits, and you're using a licensed person if it's required. Doug, I had not ever thought about that you can move a box. As long as you don't have to disconnect it, you can move it. It's kind of like moving your kitchen wall.
Well, that's in Dallas. So in Dallas, you can do that. I think in Fort Worth that you can't. So
that was my other point.
County. Yeah.
The second part of the question.
Each county has their own
Who
rules.
do I contact for permits, and when do I want to contact them? Can you take that, Doug?
Yeah. So who you contact for permits would be the city code enforcement. Sometimes if the city's big enough, they'll have the people that are doing the permits and doing the code enforcement in different offices. So you've just got to call and ask them. So if I'm doing a rehab, I need to get a permit for the whole rehab. That permit goes in the window where they can see it from the street.
Mm-hmm.
And then if there's going to be any plumbing or any electrical or HVAC or anything like that that's going to be going on, then those guys have to get a separate permit, and that permit goes with the other. We use them in a Ziploc, taped to the inside of the window, not the outside. And so that anytime that an inspector comes in, they can take a look at that. We had an inspector come in. I was working for another contractor who often didn't get permits all the time, but it was a burnout, and we were replacing windows and 2x4s, and so that framing had to be inspected, and the windows had to be inspected. But at the same time, we got the insurance money, and it was more than what was needed to replace the windows and fix the sheetrock and do all the other stuff. And we were adding a new shower in the bathroom upstairs, and the plumber was pouring the pan, and the inspector that came to inspect the new windows, he was just started walking around the house. So they have free reign. And so he walks in and he sees this plumber pouring a new pan in a shower. Concrete, plumbing, and I think it was a stop order. They will give you a stop order, and everything has to cease.
Yep.
Everything. And it was, for me, it was a nice little break from working, but I didn't get paid for, But they're going to check. You get an inspector. Matter of fact, we had one do a stop order on us in Oak Cliff, and he just drove by and saw the trash trailer in front. So the trash trailer in the front is a big clue that something's going on.
Yep.
And before we could move on, we had to get we had to permit the whole thing.
So the moral to the story is get your permits, people.
That's right.
That's right. That's because I know, like out in the county, it's different. And I mean, every municipality is different, and that's another thing. When you're hiring your contractor, you want to make sure that they know the local code, because what's in Longview might be different than Dallas, might be different from Fort Worth. So if we have somebody come in from Longview to Dallas to do a property and they're not familiar with local code, and they just go get their what do they call that? When they register at the local to be a contractor?
Oh yeah. Well, it's just registration. It's
okay. When they register with them, if they don't know that municipality's code and then they do the work, again, you got to redo it. And then you got to pay them to redo it, and that might be more money. They may have to tear out everything, and I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. So just make sure. Go ahead.
Karen, it was one thing that comes to mind on this: as you're going and doing the right thing, you're beginning to establish relationships with code enforcement officers.
I guarantee
right?
you.
And you can either establish a poor one or you can establish a good one. And it's always better to have great relationships with code enforcement people.
Yeah.
Right, because you never know when that may lead to another deal down the road.
But it also may lead to them talking inside the offices. Well, I'm going over to talk to see the Toons. They didn't permit this last time, and they kind of let that slip, and so you begin to get a bad name with those guys.
Yeah,
and you don't want that.
Nope,
definitely not. Eric, you were saying you were trying to say something?
Yeah, and they said exactly what I was going to say. Your reputation with the code enforcement folks just as important as that with the buying public.
Exactly. Renee, something about what you just said about building that relationship, it could lead to your next deal. I have actually been driving down the road and saw the big, nice, pretty warning on the
Right.
door, and I go up and read it, and it says, this is in violation, blah 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 blah. Please contact code enforcement. I'll call them and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying this house. What needs to be done on the property to bring it
Right.
up to code? We've had ones that the door just wasn't locking, so anybody could come in and out, and code doesn't, local government doesn't like that. They're like, you need to lock that door. I put a lock on the door. Somebody kicked it in, so I put a piece of plywood over it. Fixed. But it's just a phone call. And like you said, you're building that relationship. Hey, I'm thinking about buying this property. I want to bring this property up to standards and make it a nice addition to the neighborhood instead of this eyesore, instead of this problem.
Right.
And then when they see that you did it and you did your permits and you have that good relationship, oh, well, somebody else that says, I can't afford to fix that house. My grandmother left it to me. I can't afford to fix it. I know it's a problem, but I don't know what to do with it. Maybe they'll call you.
Right.
Great. And code enforcement lists are great lists to pull, to get that list from and say, hey, let me call these people. Let me buy these properties. Because code enforcement does not want to be out dealing with the issues either. They want the property fixed. Just as they want the property fixed. The city wants their money. Everybody wants it done right. Just make everybody happy, and you get a deal. So,
Yep.
Okay. We may come back to that in a minute, of course. Roger, can you
Yes, ma'am.
take two contracts on the same property?
Not active. You can have a backup contract, but you cannot sell the property to two different people and just hope one of them closes first. We've seen this happen before. You wind up in multiple lawsuits with that, but you cannot accept two contracts. Now, can you accept a contract and a backup contract? Absolutely. So you can make that work, but you've got to disclose to the backup contract that they are a backup contract, and they need to sign an addendum to that contract stating just that they are a backup contract. If something happens to the first one, they are first in line because that's already been negotiated between the buyer and the seller, or you and the buyer, however that works. Something else on that is you need to make sure that well, okay, that's the crew. I was going to go to another question, but I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to say you need to make sure that you understand you cannot accept two different contracts at the same time.
Right. That would be illegal. Because we hear it all the time. Oh, I'm selling it to somebody else. They pay me more, and then we have to stop them and say, that's illegal.
Right. Let me add something to that real quick too, Karen.
Go ahead.
You don't want to make, or you want to make sure that I just went blank. I'm sorry. As far as the you cannot, if you are the seller, you cannot boot somebody out of the contract because you get a better contract.
Right.
All right. We see people try to do that often as investors. And once that contract is in place, that's exactly what it is. It is a contract between a buyer and a seller. So you cannot tell them, oh, I got somebody else that came in and offered me $10,000 more. You either bring yours up $10,000 or I'm going to kick you out of the contract. You can't do that. Once you've accepted, it's locked in.
Right. Accepted and signed.
And
absolutely.
And conversely, that can't be done to you. You can hold them to that contract. They can't kick you out of it.
Yep. Absolutely.
Absolutely. You're right.
Okay, let's see. Two contracts at the house. And okay, if anybody has any questions, make sure that you drop them into the chat box. It should be below us in the description box below, as is all of everyone's links to their different groups. We do have so many, and we are adding more. So I just want to throw that out there. Let's see. We got that one. Got that one. Okay. What time is it? It's 7:35.
Okay. And we can cut this call short if we don't have any more questions, because we do need to talk about some events that we have coming
We
up.
have lots of
and get away.
announcements.
Absolutely.
Go
So,
right ahead. If we have more, we'll jump in at the end if we have time. Go ahead.
Well,
all right.
we were going
Good
to
deal.
talk. There was somebody that had a question about CPA.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Who you want
Eric,
to have for
Yeah.
your? Yeah.
Well, just
that
real
was your
quick.
question, Eric. The question was, well, we were talking about who do you talk to about setting up the correct way to set up your LLC, and what do you want it to avoid?
And what kind of entity? Well, again, we are not lawyers and legal advice givers. But what I know is that I talk to my CPA or my attorney about the correct way to set up my LLC, because there are so many stories we hear about operating agreements being drawn up on different platforms that don't stand up in court. So you want to make sure you talk with your CPA or your attorney about your goals and what platform, what entity works best for your goals.
I'll give you a prime example. Doug and Renee may have 3 LLCs. They may be a partner together on one or 2. Doug's like, really? I am not married, so I don't have a spouse to be my partner, but I do have some businesses with partners that are partners. But if you set up, like my daughter is married, but she set up her business as a sole proprietor. So I'm telling you right now, if we looked at all 4 of our tax returns, the 4 of us on here right now, they would all be completely different because we all have different things that we're doing. And even being a real estate investor, you could have a note that you've wrapped a mortgage and you've sold it with owner financing. You could have your rentals that you own free and clear, or that you have a mortgage on, or that you have taken over subject to. There are so many variables. So absolutely talk to your CPA, talk to your attorney. Don't try to shortcut it, because if you have a business partner and things go south and you decide to dissolve the company, you talk about a nightmare. It can be a total nightmare as to, what happens at the end of the year if Joe Blow that you were partners with takes off and doesn't pay his half of the tax liability that's owed on the company.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Eric.
Another interesting entity, not really an entity, but another way to work business. I know a landlord who has dealt with dealt with high maintenance renters, and to avoid being found by his high maintenance renters, he filed for a DBA, a doing business as, and just used a different variation of his name or a slightly different name. So a DBA, doing business as, was able to provide him a little more privacy. Something else you might want to look into.
Go ahead, Doug.
So I do have 3 LLCs, but and they all do different things.
I did not know that.
Yeah, the handyman business, we have impact business, and we have our real estate business, and I even have one more that I operate as a sole proprietor and buy tax sales for people. But the thing is in the state of Texas, an LLC can be owned by one person. In other states, it has to be more than one person.
Yep.
And if it is one person, the CPA is going to treat it as a sole proprietor. So you're really not gaining a whole lot. But there was a guy that we had during COVID that did a Facebook live presentation for us, that he set up LLCs for real estate investors. That's what he did. And he set them up the right way. He talked to the people and he found out what they needed. I don't remember if he was a CPA or an attorney. I'm pretty sure he had both on his team. But he's the one that set up the LLC for one of our students. Mm-hmm. And, and he's been really happy with it. But as far as your CPA goes, they can treat an LLC like a sole proprietorship. They can treat it like a partnership, and they can treat it like an S corp, depending on what kind of profit you're making, what kind of deals you're doing, whether it's fix and flip or buy and hold. It just depends on what you're doing, and so you've got to talk to them anyway.
You need a good CPA that understands real estate.
Right. And I just recently changed my CPA, basically just because of customer service.
Yeah.
Not anything serious. It's just not available. I couldn't call them and ask questions. I actually was a little afraid to call them. You big dummy. It wasn't a fun thing to do, to call my CPA. So I just said, no, I can't do this anymore. I've got to find somebody else. So
our first CPA
anyway.
that we interviewed, he helped me get everything set up. And then he literally said to me, okay, call me back when you're making some money. You're just getting started. And I was like,
yeah,
what did he just say? And we made like $50,000 like the first 2 months. And I was like, now what do we do? And he was like, we're not going back to that guy. We're going to change CPAs. And that was my other point I wanted to make was, I bet you guys run into this also. I know for me, I run into this a lot with people stressing over, well, in addition to stressing over creating the perfect business card, they're afraid to get started because they don't have their LLC set up yet. And so they won't do that first deal because they don't have an LLC. I'm like, go make the money and then pay for your LLC.
Buy your LLC, right?
You don't have to. You don't have to have the LLC to do a deal. When you really start to get big, that's when it's going to matter.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. So don't let the fact that you don't have an LLC hold you back from doing a deal.
Your face too.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Roger.
All right, and throw this in there before we go into the events here. But in our training, we teach our students how to set that all up. Not the LLC. We don't teach them that. We send our students to the right people to do that. But we have 6 forms that we always have our contractors sign. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's part of what we do. It's a W-9. We have a form that has been produced. It is a independent contractor agreement. Okay, it's telling them what we expect out of them and what they expect out of us. We have an insurance identification agreement. We do a scope of work, a checklist, a purchase order. We call it. We have a form for that. We have a payment schedule, and we work that. And then we have a final lien waiver that we have them sign when the job is done. So that way they're not going to come back to us and cloud the title or something on that basis. So that's what that's kind of what we provide in some of our training, is how to make sure you're getting that done right. Dennis can't be on here tonight. He's actually on a discovery trip for us, because we're going to talk about that, but he's in Cancun right now on that discovery trip. But he had a client years ago that did not get that final lien waiver and wound up having to pay a contractor twice because the contractor clouded the title and just wanted extra money. And it was really a pain in the neck for him, and he didn't have time to go forward and fight over it, I guess is the best way to put that. So that's kind of what one of the things that we provide when we're working with our clients, and we want to make sure they stay out of trouble. That's the purpose of this call tonight, is to make everybody aware that if you do things right, you do things ethically, everything will be good. That's kind of the way it is. Whether you're an investor, a realtor, a banker, a CPA, whatever. There's lots of stuff in the news about people stealing money, and we help you make sure that you are prepared and you hold people accountable for what they do. All right. So with that, Deb, did you want to throw anything in there about any type of contractor agreements or how you work that with your contractors?
Me?
Do you have anything to add?
Yeah. Well, not really. I thought of something, but then it slipped my mind just as soon as I thought of it. So you probably covered it.
I was there a while ago.
Happens.
Yeah. Rod Sterling says hello, Doug. We were there together. So, well, good. Okay.
I do know that when we start talking about getting an LLC and getting set up with a CPA and you're talking about spending money. A lot of people are trying to avoid spending money. And, my question is, how are you going to make money? I taught my kids about the law of reciprocity. And if you take a kernel of corn and you go plant it in the ground, you don't expect tomatoes to jump up,
Why not?
right? I don't know. And then if you plant one kernel of corn, you don't expect one kernel to pop up. You expect there to be a plant with many ears and multiple. So that's the way it is. And if you plant that seed in the ground, you're going to spend money on getting the LLC done. Well, you could search on the web and find out how to get it done for free, or you could go to an attorney and pay them $500 to get it done, and then you've got it done, and it's done right. And all the paying the contractors, trying to skimp out on that. Those guys know what they're doing.
Peace of mind is invaluable.
Oh, it is.
Peace of mind is invaluable. And you have a lot of peace of mind when you put professionals on your team.
Now, I can tell you that money comes and goes.
Yes.
Money comes and goes. You don't
Cost
get
of
your
doing
time
business,
back.
right, Doug?
Right. You don't get your time back. So
Do what, Karen?
Cost of doing business. Y'all said
Yeah.
that several times tonight. Cost of doing business.
Cost of doing business. That's right.
Yeah. It's tax deductible. I mean, my gracious.
Right.
That's right.
You don't get it
Sorry.
back in the bank tomorrow, but you will get it back. So,
Yeah.
Right.
or well,
All right. With that,
you
we're
won't
going to
have to
segue in. June the 18th in Oklahoma City. I'll be teaching an all-day subject to training. And June the 18th is on a Saturday. It starts at 9 a.m. We'll wrap it up at around 5. We are very limited on our seats up there. But if you go into MeetUp.com, there should be a MeetUp date in there or an event for June the 18th in Oklahoma City. So we're excited about that. These have been very successful. At the end of this call, we're going to be replaying a video from a testimonial of one of my classes that we did, and I'm excited about that. So June the 18th, it's $299 for the first attendee, and then you can bring a friend for $100. If you've got a second friend, unfortunately, they get to pay $299, and then they can bring a friend for $100. So that's kind of how that works. So it's going to be June the 18th, Saturday, Oklahoma City, right downtown Oklahoma City, in a great facility down there. But we are limited on seats. So if you're interested in going there, click on that. There's also some links to some hotels in the area. There's about 40 hotels within about a half a mile from that event center. So that you can get great rates out there. You can get a better hotel for a higher rate, whatever you want to do on that. So there's a couple of links on there, but you can definitely find that out. And I was up in Oklahoma City yesterday. Great group of people up there. So we're excited that that's going to be our next Subject to event is going to be June the 18th. And then we go into if you go into realimpactevents.com, we have Alan Calgill coming in here. Alan is the pretty much the national expert on finding money, and he's got a great presentation for that. And that's going to be on August the 20th on a Saturday. We're going to have Alan giving a preview of what he's going to be talking about all day on Saturday throughout the week at our various locations. Once again, you can find that on MeetUp, or you can go to realimpactevents.com. You can get our schedules on there, where we're going to be, and you can register at that point. That is going to be held in Hurst, Texas, which is just right south of the airport, kind of southwest of DFW Airport. So we're excited about that, August the 20th. Look at that. It's $49 a ticket on that one. And then we have our annual Mastermind Getaway. And it's actually mastermindgetaway.com. We're going to be going to Jade Resort in Cancun. Once again, that's where Dennis and Norma are at today, or this week, making sure that everything is arranged for that. If you go to mastergetaway.com, that is on there, and that's going to be in September, on September 21st through the 25th. And last year we had 62 of us investors that went down there. This is an all-inclusive resort. It is absolutely phenomenal. Everything is included in that. The price right now, and I think we only have 7 rooms that are still available. We've sold all the other rooms. The price right now is $11.95 for 5 days and 4 nights. Does not include airfare. Does not include your transfer from the airport to the resort. But it is all inclusive. All your meals, your drinks, everything is included in that. We've got a phenomenal trip. I talked to Dennis yesterday, and he is just so pumped at what this resort is offering to us. And so, once again, it's up on the screen right now, kind of what we've got. We've got 7 rooms left at this price. We may not be able to get any more rooms, but we've locked in this price, $11.95. So we look forward to seeing you there. That is for 2 adults and 2 children under 12. If you want to bring your kids, it is kid friendly. But we're looking forward to seeing you in September on that. So, CJ, if you can put everybody back on the screen, we're excited about all we got going on. Look for that. Does anybody on this call tonight have anything you want to throw in before we close this out?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Roger, that when we talked to Dennis earlier, we were sold out for the mastermind getaway. And because he's down there, he was able to get us 7 more rooms.
Right.
So it was a completely sold out event, but luckily he got a few more rooms. So if you're even interested in doing this, and he said right now the rooms are still the price we're publishing, but they could go up at any moment. These are not necessarily fixed for very long. So if you're even thinking about it, take advantage of that information.
Because the prices definitely will not go down. This is not this buy it today for $11.95 and we're going to have it on sale for $7.75 next week. No, they will go up. They start low and then they go up. If they're going up, if their price is going to change, it is going to go up, not down.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Wanted to add something. I've already forgotten what it was.
Yeah, Doug and I were there.
Oh. Y'all, it's your fault. My first meeting is going to be in Allen, Texas on June the 4th. And I don't think we will have a call before then. So I just wanted to say, please come out and support me if you're in the Allen, Plano area. It's going to be at the Keller Williams building at 9:30 on Saturday morning, June 4th. And you can find me on MeetUp. Did somebody say something?
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because we will not be having a call next Sunday because of Memorial Day.
Correct.
I'm glad you
didn't
brought
have
that up.
one. We've been having a lot of holidays here recently. So, yeah, next weekend is Memorial Day weekend. We will not have a call next Sunday, but we will be back on June the 5th. And if you come on June 5th and you miss my meeting on June 4th, I might have to wring your neck.
There you go. All right. So thank you, everybody, for being on here tonight. We appreciate you.
Go ahead,
Raj.
We're going to close this out with a testimonial video on subject 2.
Doug has something to add, Roger.
Oh, Doug, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I was just thinking that, we actually went through the all-day sub 2 class twice before we did our first sub 2. I think it just not only was it informative, but it built belief. So if you don't believe that you can do it, you're not going to try. But if you sit through the class and you hear what he's saying, you start to believe that it's possible.
Yep.
And hearing these testimonies too. I mean, people do these things all the time, and you just have to know that it's possible.
Right.
Absolutely. So we're excited about that. So join us on June the 18th for sub 2, August the 20th for Alan Cowgill, which is the money guy, the private money guy, and then Mastermind Getaway in September 21st through the 25th. So we're looking forward to everybody being on there. Yep. So with that, let's wrap it up. Thanks everybody for being on here tonight. We will not have a call next week. but we'll be back on June the 5th.
2 weeks.
And don't remember what our subject is on June the 5th, but we're going to be back on June the 5th.
Bye, everyone.
All right,
Bye.
bye. Watch this video.
Bye.
Because this is a strong testimony. This is what we see in these classes. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Why don't you go on?
All right. Thank you. Can everybody hear me? All right. So I knew nothing about real estate in November of 2017. And I took a class, learned a little bit of the basics. Didn't know how to acquire a property. Like most of y'all, I thought, gosh, I have a little bit of money, but this is kind of tough. Where do I even begin, right? So I discovered Roger in 2018 and took his subject to class. I think it was in Fort Worth. And it was pretty cool, right? I mean, everything you're learning, you guys are just at the beginning of the class today. But halfway through the day, I started realizing, wow, there's really something to this. So I went out and I aggressively found the attorney, found the CPA, did my marketing. And that's actually when Facebook was actually working for marketing. And so my first year, starting summer of 2018 until summer of 2019, we acquired 26 properties with subject to in 1 year. Yep, 26. Unfortunately, here's the downside. I'm like, what do I do with these properties as we're picking them up? So we moved out of the 26, we ended up selling 21 of them. And today we still have 5 of that original first batch of the first year. But since then, once I finally learned how to keep properties long-term, we keep them. So now we got a pretty simple model. We keep every property. We never sell a property except owner financing. So if it's in a great school district, I keep it for a rental. If it's not in the perfect school district and it's under a certain price point, for me, like today's value, if it's under $300,000, and it's in a bad school district, I just owner finance it out. And I move them, gosh, 1 week, 2 weeks tops. I've got a buyer, 10% down, 10% interest. So it's pretty good. It's a simple model. And once you get going with it, it's you just don't turn back. It's easy, very easy. Thanks to Roger.
All right. Well, thank you, Tommy.